So, Halko, somatic psychotherapy has gained so much more interest in the last few decades, and people are beginning to understand more deeply about the somatic embodiment of who they are, and then with that, the different parts that they hold within themselves. And we've come to adopt a lot of parts language. And I really want to highlight here that Hakomi has had the languaging of parts and working with internalized parts from its inception. And I'm wondering if you can give a
Yeah.
little bit of context of how that looks.
Yeah. Well, basically, the first principle, the unity principle, in other words, it can be expressed out as parts into wholes, how things organize parts into larger and larger interacting wholes, where the part in which parts are interacting. And we've done this, we were aware of it, we've been using it a little bit, but then in the 90s, there was a big cooperation between Dick Schwartz and our work. Richard Schwartz came to our workshops. We worked closely with him. I did for a long time, I did events with him. And that really kindled some kind of deeper reflection of what parts really are, how to use it in a better way. And there was a big inspiration that Dick brought to our work, although it looks a little bit different the way we do it. For instance, Dick distinguishes between three kinds of parts. I think for us it's more useful to have just two, which I call protectors and protected parts. And then I also think that parts is not exactly the right word for it. It's more what I like to say in a more psychotherapeutic or more psychological way. I call them states. Actually, states that people get into or could get into or that could be triggered or that are like ready to come forward, activation of the neurological and physiological system that we have learned over time in our development as a human being, and that are now ready to act and ready to come forward and take over and lead our actions and our feelings and how our body is organized. It's always, the state is a very complex thing that includes thinking, the body, feelings, memories, the behavior, all of that comes together in a state, and they can shift according to what's happening at the moment. We actually shift through states all through a day. So we're looking, or at least I do, look at more like at states than at parts, and how they are, and there we are again with Dick Schwartz, organized internally in an internal, very intelligent, very sensitive ecology that we can actually depict and look at and understand and relate to. For instance, I mean, we all may know clients or even know in ourselves parts that are, let's say, lonely and sad. You know, if you don't have one, but you certainly have a neighbor or friend or client that has such a part. And if it's very strong, you don't want to be overwhelmed by it every day. You don't want to be stuck in it. So we develop another part, another state, or could. There are different states that we can develop to handle the situation. Let's say we develop a state that feels, okay, I don't need anything. I can do everything by myself. It's actually built so that we don't feel dependent and lonely. And so those two parts, or those two states, interact, but they're really different states. If you're in one, you're really sad and crying and dark and everything. The way you think is in one way and the body is organized in one way. And then there's this other part that may run you most of your life, or maybe a very powerful part where you're strong and can do things, can handle things, take care of others, and you try to avoid the other state. There are lots of states or parts built around not to fall into that state because feels so helpless and so without any exit. So we're interested in, like, what does the ecology give us? It's like there are all kinds of states that interact at any given moment, and how can we map it? How can we get an overview? How do we know what to work with and when? That's basically what parts or state understanding of psychotherapy is useful for. Mm-hmm. It gives you a sense where you are in a therapeutic session, much more than when you're just following the things as your clients offers them.
And this is also where belief systems come in, right? So the state specific is, as you said, it's a feeling, it's a behavior, it's a sensation, it's a body memory. But then there's also belief systems that get created out of those states, which are really important to uncover, right?
Yeah. In the systems language, it's models of reality. In psychotherapy, they're sometimes called cognitive schemata. Like, most psychotherapists have an idea of some kind of guiding understanding of what the world and who I am that are actually, but they're really, really located in the implicit memory system, outside of awareness, very often far away from any knowledge about them. And they're each of one of those states has a separate little knowledge base about life and how to deal with life. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And this again is where it becomes circular, working somatically, working with mindfulness and working with the body, where we can often not understand fully the beliefs that govern us, but we can begin to feel and sense our way into it and how they have shaped our internal reality, right?
Yeah.
So that's...
Yeah. Chris Gerner, the big researcher from Harvard about mindfulness, he said he feels that mindfulness is the number one method of actually accessing implicit memory and to uncover what implicit memory seems to know about the world and how that shapes our whole being.
Yeah, very powerful too. I think this is where really clients get the most out of this kind of work with Hakomi, because they begin to understand themselves really from the inside out versus just from the top down, right?
Well, that's how we ended up with the name Hakomi, because we found out it means, who are you? And one used to call it therapy assisted self-study. It's, yes, I get to know myself. I'm not going to run on automatic forever. I am stepping back. I understand how this whole thing is operating, that I am, and look for the little moments where we have freedom of not following our automatic self.
Thank you.